The discovery was said to be so unexpected that it immediately raised a question no royal watcher could ignore. Had Prince William uncovered a previously unseen letter connected to his mother, Princess Diana? And if such a letter truly existed, what could possibly be written inside that would leave Britain stunned? The claim spread with all the ingredients of an extraordinary royal mystery: a hidden document, a private message from one of the most famous women in modern history, and her eldest son, now the Prince of Wales, allegedly reading its contents aloud. But behind the dramatic headline lies an even deeper story, because no source information has been provided confirming that Prince William discovered such a hidden letter, that Diana wrote an undisclosed message containing shocking revelations, or that William publicly read any previously unknown letter aloud. And that changes everything. The mystery, then, is not simply about what the letter supposedly said. It is about why the idea of one forgotten message from Diana still has the power to capture the imagination of an entire nation decades after her death. Because if there is one figure in modern royal history whose private words continue to generate intense public fascination, it is Diana, Princess of Wales. Her life was lived under an extraordinary spotlight. Her marriage was examined by the world. Her relationship with the monarchy became the subject of endless attention. Her role as the mother of Princes William and Harry gave her story a significance that continues into the present day. And when Diana died in 1997, the tragedy did not end public interest in her life. In many ways, it created an even greater fascination with the things she had left behind. Her photographs, her interviews, her public speeches, her charitable work, her personal belongings, and perhaps most powerfully of all, her words. That is why the idea of a hidden letter is so compelling. A letter feels personal. It suggests a message intended for someone. It creates the possibility of a voice from the past reaching into the present. And when the imagined recipient is Prince William, the emotional weight becomes even greater. But that was only the beginning, because William is no longer the young boy the world remembers walking behind his mother's coffin. He is now the Prince of Wales and the heir to the British throne. His life has taken him from childhood under extraordinary public scrutiny to a position at the center of the monarchy's future. And throughout that journey, the memory of Diana has remained an unavoidable part of the public stories surrounding him. Royal watchers have often drawn comparisons between mother and son. They have examined similarities in appearance. They have discussed charitable causes. They have considered how William has approached public life while carrying a family history unlike any other. But there is an important difference between public memory and private knowledge. The public knows Diana through the moments that became part of history. William knew her as his mother. And that is where the emotional mystery of this story becomes so powerful. Imagine for a moment what a genuine, undiscovered letter could represent. Not necessarily a political secret, not necessarily a royal scandal, but a private connection, a message preserved across time, a few words written by a mother and discovered years later by the son who has spent much of his adult life being asked about her legacy. That possibility alone explains why such a claim can generate an enormous reaction. But without verified source information, the contents of any supposed hidden letter cannot be responsibly invented. No secret warning can be presented as fact. No private message can be fabricated. No dramatic quote can be placed in Diana's voice. And yet the story remains compelling precisely because of what is genuinely known about the importance of Diana's legacy. What happened next changed the way the mystery could be understood. The question shifted from "what did the letter say?" to something much more profound. What would Diana's voice mean to William today? That question has no simple answer. William's life has changed beyond recognition since the years he spent with his mother. He has become a husband. He has become a father. He has taken on increasingly significant royal responsibilities. And as first in line to the throne, he now faces a future shaped by duties that Diana herself could never have seen completed.
The little boy who stood beside her at public engagements is now one of the most prominent figures in the British monarchy, and the woman who was once known around the world as the Princess of Wales is remembered through the title now held by his wife, Catherine. That alone gives the story an extraordinary sense of continuity.
Diana's legacy belongs to history, but William and Catherine represent the future. And somewhere between those two realities lies the reason a story about a hidden letter can feel so emotionally powerful. Because letters do something unusual. They preserve a moment. A spoken conversation disappears as soon as it ends. A letter remains. It can be read years later. It can be discovered by someone who was not present when it was written. It can carry the thoughts of one generation into another. And in the case of a royal family, where so much is documented, but so much also remains private, the idea of an unknown letter creates an almost irresistible curiosity gap. What had been kept hidden? Why had nobody seen it before? Was it truly intended for William? And if he did read it aloud, why would the public only be hearing about it now? These are dramatic questions, but based on the information supplied for this story, they remain unanswered. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. The fascination with the supposed letter may reveal more about Diana's lasting influence than about any newly discovered document. More than a generation after her death, Diana remains one of the most recognizable figures associated with the British royal family. Her story continues to provoke discussion because it contains so many different elements. There was glamour, there was personal struggle, there was public service, there was intense media attention, there was motherhood, and there was a tragic ending that shocked the world. But perhaps the most enduring part of Diana's story is that her legacy continues through her sons. William and Harry have each followed different paths. Their lives have unfolded under extraordinary public scrutiny. Their relationship with the monarchy has been the subject of extensive global discussion, but they share one central fact that can never change. Diana was their mother. For William, that connection is especially visible because he now occupies the same title once held by Diana's former husband, and because his own wife is now the Princess of Wales. That has created an unusual historical circle. The title associated with one of the most famous women of the 20th century is now part of Catherine's role as William's wife. And William himself is moving steadily closer to the position his father once held as heir before becoming king. The past and future of the monarchy are constantly overlapping. That is why even an unconfirmed story about a letter can create such intense emotion. It places Diana, William, and the future of the monarchy into the same moment. Behind the scenes, however, another question begins to emerge. How much of Diana's private world can ever truly belong to the public? This is where royal fascination collides with personal privacy. Diana was one of the most photographed and discussed women in the world, yet being famous does not mean every private thought becomes public property. A letter written in confidence would remain a deeply personal document. Its significance might belong first to the person who wrote it and the person intended to receive it. That is especially important when discussing claims about private family material. The public may be fascinated by the possibility of discovering what Diana really thought, but no responsible account can simply invent her thoughts and place them inside a fictional letter. That would not reveal Diana's voice. It would replace her voice with someone else's imagination. And perhaps that is the most important part of this entire story. The mystery is powerful because the real Diana was already complex enough. There is no need to invent a secret document to understand why her relationship with William mattered. The public already knows that Diana's sons were central to her life. The emotional connection between a mother and her children is powerful without the addition of an imaginary revelation. And yet, royal watchers continue to search for new pieces of the story. A photograph never seen before, a forgotten video, a personal possession, a recollection from someone who knew her, or, as this dramatic claim suggests, a hidden letter. But the detail that followed is what caught royal watchers completely off guard.
The most powerful revelation may not be the existence of a secret message at all. It may be the realization that William is now at an age and stage of life where he can understand his mother's legacy in ways that were impossible when he was a child. When Diana died, William was still young. He could not have understood every political, institutional, and personal pressures surrounding her life. He could not have known what it meant to navigate royal responsibility as an adult. He could not have understood the pressures of marriage and parenthood in the same way he might understand them now. Today, his position is completely different. He has a family of his own. He has spent years performing public duties. He has experienced the constant scrutiny of royal life as an adult rather than as a child, and he knows that one day he is expected to become king. That perspective could make any genuine private memory of his mother feel different now than it would have years ago.
A photograph can mean something new. A memory can take on greater significance. A familiar story can be understood from another angle. And if an authentic letter from Diana were ever discovered and verified, its importance would not necessarily depend on whether it contained a shocking revelation. Sometimes, the most powerful words are the simplest ones. But because no verified contents have been supplied for this story, those words cannot be invented here. Instead, the mystery remains exactly where it belongs, in the unanswered question, what, if anything, was truly discovered? Was there a previously unknown letter? Was it written by Diana? Was William actually the intended recipient? And did he ever read it publicly? Without reliable source information establishing those events, no definitive answer can be given. But that uncertainty has not stopped the story from raising another fascinating question. What would the discovery of such a document mean for the monarchy today? The answer could be more complicated than many people imagine. Diana's relationship with the monarchy was one of the defining royal stories of her era. She became an international icon while living within an institution built on tradition, privacy, and protocol. Her experiences helped shape public conversations about the royal family in ways that are still felt today. William now stands in a completely different position. He is not an outsider entering the royal system. He is the future sovereign. His challenge is not simply to understand the monarchy, it is to help shape its future while respecting the institution he may one day lead. That means Diana's legacy is not only emotional for him, it is also part of the historical context surrounding his public life. Every major step William takes is likely to invite comparisons with the past. Every decision is examined through the lens of both his father's reign and his mother's legacy. That is an extraordinary inheritance, not an inheritance of money or property alone, but an inheritance of memory. And memory can be more powerful than any document. What happened next in the wider conversation was a renewed focus on the connection between William's personal history and his future responsibilities. Could a private discovery from the past influence how he sees the future? Possibly, but only William himself could truly know. And unless he publicly discusses a genuine document, the public cannot responsibly fill in the blanks. That is why the phrase, "what it says stunned all Britain," must be approached with caution. Without an authentic, provided text, there is nothing to quote. There is no verified statement to analyze. There is no confirmed revelation that can be presented as Diana's final hidden message. The headline promises an answer. The available information provides a mystery. And perhaps that is more revealing than it first appears, because the desire to know what Diana might have written shows that her voice still matters to millions of people. Even now, the possibility of hearing something new from her captures public attention. That is an extraordinary legacy. And that brings us back to William. For the public, Diana is a historical figure, an icon, and a source of endless fascination.
For William, she was his mother. That difference changes everything. Royal documentaries can examine the public story, headlines can speculate about discoveries, commentators can discuss legacy, but there is a private dimension to loss that no public narrative can completely explain. William has carried that history from childhood into adulthood, and now, as his own public role continues to grow, the memory of Diana follows him into a completely new era of royal life. There is another reason the supposed discovery has captured so much attention. William's future role is becoming increasingly significant. The closer he moves toward the responsibilities expected of a future king, the more people look backward at the people who shaped him. His father, King Charles, is the reigning monarch. His grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, represented an era of extraordinary continuity. And Diana remains one of the most emotionally powerful figures connected to his early life. Together, those influences form a complicated picture. William has inherited the traditions of the monarchy, but he has also inherited the public memory of Diana. The question for the future is how those two forces will coexist. Will a future King William represent continuity with the past? Will he seek to modernize the monarchy further? And how much of Diana's influence will remain visible in the next generation?
These questions do not require a hidden letter to exist. They already form part of the larger story, but the imagined discovery brings them into sharp focus, and this is where the emotional tension reaches its peak. Suppose for a moment that a genuine, previously unseen letter from Diana to William were ever authenticated and made public with the family's consent. What would people expect to find? A warning? A secret? A revelation about the monarchy? Or something much more personal? The truth is that nobody can know without seeing a genuine document, and that is precisely why speculation should not become fact. The temptation to invent a dramatic message is obvious. A shocking warning would make a powerful headline. A secret confession would generate worldwide attention. A prediction about William's future would dominate royal news. But none of those ideas can be attributed to Diana without evidence. Her actual voice deserves better than invented words. And that is where the story finds its most meaningful resolution. The greatest shock may not come from discovering something Diana wrote. It may come from understanding how little is required to remind the world of her influence. One headline about a possible hidden letter was enough to make people ask questions about a woman who died decades ago. Enough to turn attention toward her eldest son. Enough to reopen discussions about the future of the monarchy. And enough to remind millions of people that history does not always remain in the past. Sometimes it continues through the people who carry it forward. William is one of those people. His life has changed beyond anything the young prince beside Diana could have imagined. He has become a husband and father. He has become the Prince of Wales. He has become the direct heir to the British throne. And with every passing year, the possibility of his future reign becomes less distant. But even as William prepares for that future, his past remains part of his story. Diana's legacy cannot be separated from him, nor can it be reduced to a single dramatic letter. Her influence exists in memory, history, and the public imagination. It exists in the causes associated with her life. It exists in the photographs that remain instantly recognizable, and it exists in the continuing fascination with what her sons remember about her. So, what, ultimately, did the supposed hidden letter say? Based on the information provided for this story, there is no verified answer. No authenticated text has been supplied. No confirmed public reading by William has been established, and no genuine quotation can be placed in Diana's voice. The mystery, therefore, remains unresolved. But perhaps that unresolved ending is the only honest one, because the real story is not about pretending to know the words inside a document that has not been provided.
The real story is about why the possibility of those words matters so much. It matters because Diana's story remains emotionally alive for the public. It matters because William is now carrying the responsibilities of the future while still carrying the memories of the past. And it matters because the British monarchy itself is moving toward another generation. One day, William is expected to lead the institution. Catherine will stand beside him in a role unlike any she has held before, and the monarchy will enter another chapter. When that day arrives, people will undoubtedly look for signs of the past within the future. They will ask how Diana influenced the man William became. They will compare generations. They will search for continuity. And perhaps they will continue wondering whether there are still untold stories waiting somewhere in the shadows of royal history. Maybe there are documents the public has never seen. Maybe there are memories William and his family will always keep private. Maybe some questions will never receive a public answer. And perhaps that is exactly as it should be. Not every part of a royal life belongs to the public. Not every memory must become a headline. Not every private word needs to be transformed into a national revelation. Yet the fascination will continue, because Diana's story is inseparable from the story of her sons, and William's journey from the little boy who lost his mother to the man preparing for the greatest responsibility of his life remains one of the most remarkable narratives in modern royal history. So, the final question is not simply whether a hidden letter exists. The deeper question is this: as William moves closer to the future that awaits him, how much of Diana's legacy will continue to shape the monarchy he may one day lead? That answer may never be written inside a single letter. It may instead be revealed slowly through William's choices, his priorities, his family, and the kind of king he eventually becomes. And if there is one thing this extraordinary story proves, it is that even decades later, the world is still listening for Diana's voice and watching to see how her son carries that legacy into the future.